Right, folks, welcome to the Besides and On podcast. I'm Scuba, sitting here with Craig.
Saturn.
Nice one. And we've also got a guest in, Richard Pulsford, who's a kind of local comedian based in Burntisland.
Hello, yes, that's me.
Excellent. Excellent introduction from yourself there. Now, obviously this podcast is due for coming out kind of a few days after, but could you kind of roughly talk about what's happening tonight?
Yeah, well, I'm over at this neck of the woods because I'm running the comedy at a Korean comedy night, which is at Leven Golfing Society. Mm-hmm. That's through Mirth comedy agency, which I run, and it's about the third time, I think. I was trying to work out whether it's third or fourth. I'm kind of losing count now. But it's like a repeat gig, so it's, the last two or three have gone really well. So that's why I'm up here this evening.
Do you know when, like, around about the first time that Curry comedy nights that first started? Because those have become like a crazy amount of like gigs happen a lot with Korean comedy nights. First time I had one was the Kirkcaldy Comedy Festival a few years ago. Yeah,
that's a very good question, actually. I've no idea who first thought up Korean comedy.
Because if you're eating a curry, it's well known that it's not the best thing for the indigestion system.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of wrong food to have for a comedy night. If you're
the indigestion system.
Well, I was trying to be nice about it. Digestion system. There you go.
It probably started with some comedians after a gig in a takeaway somewhere, and they probably just started performing, and someone went, "Hey, this is brilliant! Let's just have curry and comedy together." And that's probably started somewhere.
That's a good idea, though.
It's a fantastic idea.
It's a great combination. I've seen Thai and comedy. As in Thai food. I can't think. Fish and chips and comedy doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, it sounds like a kind of gimmicky British thing, sort of thing.
Yeah,
a real kind of gimmicky and like mushy peas and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some posh end of England where they have what would it be? A guacamole and
a big Mexican
a
comedy
dips night and comedy or something. Yeah.
I know they do a soup with a lot of musical things. What was it
there's like soup and a roll and stuff like that kind of thing.
Oxtail and opera.
Yeah. What? They understand the connection.
It's a weird. The basic. I think the basic idea is, and you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a kind of wee gimmicky ideas to kind of drag people in rather than, because I know in some big cities you kind of have sort of curry comedy nights and kind of like soup and a roll. This is happening tonight in Glasgow. Soup, a roll and hip hop music, which is crazy. They create puns for the soups.
Hummus and hip hop.
That'd be fantastic. We Greek hip hop night.
That'd be very, very. The market for that's probably quite narrow.
Definitely. But it's just like a kind of gimmicky idea to kind of drag people in.
What was the soup called again?
Well, they had three choices of soups. There was a Rizza Stony.
A what?
Rizza is a rapper. We'll have to
not a Rizzler.
I always assume that people know rappers that I know.
You had the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh dear.
Shall
I say yes? I'll say yes and look like I'm knowledgeable.
That's fine.
No idea what you're talking about.
Rizza is a rapper from a Wu-Tang Clan, basically.
As opposed to Rizzler, which is another kind of rapper.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So Rizza Stony was one of the soups that they came up with. I'm sure you could probably do better.
I see. Right.
The other one is a rapper called Big L, which they called Big L Entel. like that. But the one I think they were doing like a competition for the names of the soup.
Oh,
but
it's rubbish.
See, we've got a pun comedian in, and he's probably just
I'm thinking. I don't know any rappers. That's the problem.
Well, the one they went for, the most popular name is Eminem Stoney. Which I don't know. I'm not into that, but I like the Big L Entel thing better.
Aye.
Eminem Stroney?
Yeah.
I keep thinking that.
Not really.
Yeah. I'll come up with something really clever in 24 hours' time, which will be no good to this.
It's magic. But you've been running the Mirth for that's a good few years, actually.
It is a good few years.
When did it start off in Burntisland?
It did. First gig was actually 9 years ago, but that was a one-off, and then started. So 6 years. It's only 6 years. God, time goes, isn't it? Yeah. So probably done about a couple of hundred shows if you count my own solo shows and stuff in that as well. So, yeah.
And you're not really that selfish. You don't put yourself on some shows.
No, it's that age-old dilemma of what comes first, being a promoter or a comedian. And I've decided in the end I prefer being a comedian, but then I enjoy the promoting side of it. So my philosophy is if people come to me and they want me to run a gig for them, if it's free in my diary, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've not gigged there before, I might put myself on. But it's that schizophrenic thing where sometimes if there's a lot of pressure on the promoter to make sure it's all running properly. So if you've got the added pressure of performing, that can be a bit much, a bit stressful as it is. So I'm quite happy to let other comics take their turns, really.
Definitely, it cuts a lot of stress.
I never thought about that. I never thought about the stress of running it and the stress of... Because when I'm at a gig, it's just all running to me. I never see behind the scenes what's happening. Yeah, so that never popped into my head at all.
It's like the duck on the water with the legs going rapidly underneath.
Yeah.
Sweat running off the forehead in my case. Yeah.
That's it. I've noticed a lot of people that do put on comedy nights, it's usually based around them being able to perform or sort of giving them like a wee 5-minute spot. Yeah, kind of as like kind of guest shots and stuff like that. I know it can happen. It's not kind of a huge thing, but
it depends on the night. If it's like a Saturday night gig tonight, then be less inclined to let people try out stuff. It's more a case of tried and tested comedians you can rely on if possible. So.
You done a thing a while ago. I don't know if you still do this or no, but there's a thing I got in touch with you about a while ago. It was the kind of like a Fife showcase thing, just showcasing kind of Fife comedians and stuff. Was that
the
New
competition?
New Year or something like that, or Christmas or something?
Oh yeah. So that was a Christmas show at the Star in Burntisland, which is our regular venue. So I just thought, well, what can we do at Christmas time? It's a bit different. So I just thought, well, I'll just throw it open to any 5 acts and sink or swim, really. But being a Christmas thing, I thought, people are going to be a bit kinder. If it doesn't quite work out, they're not going to. So I think the first year I called it the turkey and trimmings. So whoever was the turkey, whoever was voted as the worst act, got some turkey.
Right.
So just try and make light of it. Yeah.
I've heard of these kind of ideas as well. Like, you ever done a gong show?
I've done a few, but not recently. I don't really like them.
I have no idea what a gong show is.
A gong show is basically. You want to explain this?
It sounds a bit ridiculous.
It's a way that
is this where if somebody shit?
Thing, if somebody shit,
you press a buzzer or whatever,
and then
they get kicked off, essentially.
Basically,
wow, that's brutal.
Like, I've seen ones run by Alan Anderson in Glasgow, and the comedians were able to speak. Like the guys that were judging or kind of overlooking were able to speak over the top of the sets. So you were able to hear Alan kind of like laughing a wee bit, or kind of like just saying whatever, like that, or like continue.
I do like that. I do like that.
Hate that idea. That is the scariest fucking thing.
We've had times on this podcast where we've told a joke and it's died, and the pain inside is it's rubbish.
And then to hear a massive dong,
and then other comedians taking the piss out of you. None of that.
That's it.
Not into that at all.
And you've done one, did you say?
I've done a few in the past, but there's one that I drove a very long way for, and I was gonged off. It kind of depends where you are on the show, because when the audience get the bit between the teeth and decide they don't like acts, sometimes there's a run of those. But it's just the whole competitive thing, and I hate the pressure of it. You're only going to get at the most 5 minutes, so we're kind of thinking, why am I doing this? But it's great for the promoter because it's unpaid, so they get a whole evening's comedians who want to do it, and no one gets paid.
That kind of exploits that fact that people are just looking to do material, kind of test it out and stuff like that as well, and just to get out and do some sort of live gigs and network.
Would you want to try new material at a gong show?
Obviously no. What I meant was to go out and just like get yourselves gigs, because that's a lot of the problem when you first start is you have to do as much gigs as you can, get used to doing sort of shite ones and good ones, and then you get the kind of okay ones and stuff like that, just doing as many gigs as you can. That's what I got told to kind of continue doing a lot of the time.
How's that worked out for you so far?
It's not went well because I've stopped. Big things. But that's performing the night was a guy called Liam Cumbers.
Oh yeah.
I'd done a comedy course with him, and it was like run by Billy Kirkwood and Paul Snedden, and he's been doing quite well. I keep hearing.
Well, interestingly, I've not heard from him for about a year, and then suddenly he says he's back again. So I'll be quite interested to see him tonight. I think he's got some new stuff as well as old stuff. So
because we done a gig. It was one of the Kirkcaldy Comedy Festival things, And we got like obviously you do like a couple of days worth of like a not really sort of like just kind of preparing yourself for writing a kind of small routine, basically a 3-minute routine.
Yeah.
And the only reason I've done it is because I was getting a gig at the end. That's the only reason I've kind of done that thing. If it was just a comedy course for the sake of doing that, and then because I had no fucking idea how to go about doing that at all. It's just because I suppose you could do a wee bit of research, but it was just.
Would it be the same as getting a rap gig? I mean, I can't say that I've done that either because the only gig I've done, you got me. So.
Oh, that's it. It's just I don't know.
I would imagine it couldn't be that different. You just sort of talk to promoters.
Just kind of knowing people to start off with, really. Basically, the idea.
Yeah, I think doing a course is good if you think you want to give it a go, and like you say, you have a gig at the end, so you can't. If you do the gig, you can't say you can't do it. If that makes sense.
That's it.
And you get a few pointers, hopefully, if the courses run well, as to what comedy is about and how to write a set and how to perform. So it's a good starter, and it gives you an idea of what it might be like.
That's it. That helped me. It was Kieran McAllister and Jill Lafferty were also part of this as well. Just name dropping one. I was in the middle of writing stuff, and I was just I wasn't structuring it properly. And Kier was like, "Listen, can you fucking try this and add these bits and stuff like that?" And he was kind of helping me out with the kind of structure and stuff like that as well. Yeah. So it's pretty fucking interesting to do if you are ever interested in doing that kind of thing. It's pretty cool. I know some people are against comedy workshops and stuff. Because you can't teach it really. You kind of have to.
I'm pretty sure Keir is one of those people that's against comedy courses, but then you're saying he was a tutor on one, so
right. I don't know. I didn't know he was against it. Right?
Well, I'm sure. I don't know. Maybe I'm misquoting, but
what would be the argument against it, though?
The argument against it that's
you can't teach comedy, but
you can't teach comedy.
But you can
teach it. You can teach kind of structure to a certain extent. Structure and kind of
yeah.
That
you can't teach people how to be funny, but at the same time you can give them pointers. And as I say, it gives you a gig at the end. It gives you an idea of how what it feels like. And some people are immediately bitten by the bug, and others decide it's not for them. So I think it's got value.
Like myself, that's it.
Yeah, which still did you fall between?
I done. I think
you've done a couple of gigs.
I done 3 altogether.
And when did you do the course?
Oh Christ, that was years ago. But I was like, in I think about a year, I only got 3 gigs.
Right.
Really.
Is that why you stopped, or did you stop because you thought you were shit?
Really.
Because I thought you were shit.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much.
See your best audience. Yeah.
I think it's
your fan club here.
No! When I done my first rap song, he was brutal. He was like, "Oh, that's pish. Just delete it all, put it in the bin, just jump in the bin after it. Just didn't do rap ever again." So you got no sympathy for me for being rubbish.
I think it was just more a confidence thing. My confidence was shot after kind of fucking up a couple of them, and thinking that it was going to be easy as well. A lot of the time, I was kind of overconfident, trying to go into a few of them. So I just
I think after even 3 gigs.
Well, that's it.
I think you can be overconfident.
Totally, just terrible, just terrible. But so you've been doing that for a while. Do you want to explain the style of comedy that you do? I think we've touched on it just a wee bit. Yeah,
I do puns and one-liners, wordplay, that kind of thing. So I've always enjoyed doing that kind of thing. Bit of innuendo as well. Just love the English language, playing around with it. So I found an outlet for it now. Standing on stage and doing puns.
I would imagine that I may be totally wrong. That it would take longer to write a show of one-liners than it would to write a show like where you're telling stories and stuff. Because coming up with lots and lots of one-line jokes, I can't think of one. Like that's
it's tough.
You've only given yourself a couple of seconds here.
No, I wasn't trying. I'm just saying that in life I didn't tend to think about that. So it must be.
It's tough.
Such much more difficult. I couldn't speak. Much more difficult to do that than write like a storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, it's if you could have a story that lasts 10 minutes and you've already got your story, and then you just fill it gradually with jokes. Yeah. So you've already got your joke, I suppose, which is the whole thing, and you can embellish it and add things in and make it a better and better story. With one-liners, you've got to hit the mark every 10, 15, 20 seconds, and 5 new jokes, you've got a minute's more material. Well, it's only a minute, and to get to 5 good jokes, you probably have to trial 50 jokes maybe to get 5 that reasonably hit the mark.
Do you enjoy because we watched? Did you speak of this before we're starting the one we watched?
We had a wee conversation. I was asking them sort of basic questions that we'd speak about on the.
I typed in Richard Pulsford on YouTube, and I can't remember where the first one came up, but you were doing a set, and there was a few jokes that didn't go too well, but I liked that because you see a kind of cheeky smile sort of thing, like just that you're like these people are growing a wee bit, they're getting into it sort of thing, because you can tell when they're starting to grow and going. I think that's, but they're waiting for.
There's kind of a bit puns that I like where if it's extra cheesy, I'm just like, oh, that's so beautiful. I love cheese. It's amazing.
It is quite interesting because I deliberately keep some in that I know are groaners, but they get a response. There's nothing wrong with a groan, but if every single joke was getting a groan, then that would be wrong. So it's a fine balancing act, and every person and every audience is different. It always intrigues me how at the end of a gig someone will go, oh, I liked your set, I really like the such and such joke, and I go, oh, you like that one, did you? Because no one said that to me before, so it's like, oh, I better keep that one in then. And so it's funny.
Do you find yourself structuring a lot of your sets based on the feedback you get, like if the people are...
I'm forever changing it, so I've changed it around again for tonight, because I just because I might get a new joke and I think, well, where does that fit in, so then I'll have to turn things around, and so I try to theme it to some degree.
Right.
Yeah, so these are the jokes about the wife, or these are the jokes about my kids, or stuff like that. So if there's a joke about the kids, like, well, that has to get inserted at joke number 40, or whatever. So this, it's all, you wouldn't believe the spreadsheets I've got.
Jeez, I could just imagine, because like even just try to remember a shopping list. Sometimes I'm just fucking. We
were watching Bill Bailey's Patrol. Was it last night?
Aye, we kind of started watching it ironically, but it was really funny.
How do you watch something ironically? That's interesting in itself.
Well, this is because
I'm only watching this ironically, guys. So I bet
we put it on because we remember laughing at such silly bits, and we were a lot younger when that first came out. And our kind of opinion has changed a lot on kind of what comedy we like. Yeah. So we thought maybe if we'll try and watch Bill Bailey again, because we felt like some of the bits we remembered from that Patrol release
we wouldn't laugh at now.
We wouldn't find funny.
Right.
But we laughed all the way fucking through style. So that's what I mean by watching it ironically. If anybody's wondering.
I have found that as well, that some jokes, they seem to have a natural lifespan. If that, and I have no idea why this is, but sometimes a joke is born and it kind of hits the ground running and it's fantastic. And, I just feel so pleased that I wrote it. And then 6 months down the line, for some reason, it's just not getting the same laughs. And I think, well, is it because I'm now familiar with the joke and I'm just telling it in a tired way, try and freshen it up, and it just somehow dies away. And I never really understood. And some jokes I can understand, like now more on the web and stuff, and people see my sets, whatever. So some jokes the audience already might be familiar with, so that's fair enough. But there's others where that probably isn't the case, and I find that it's really intriguing. It's almost like they literally have a life of their own. Yeah. And then there's others where it just never works when I first tried them, and after a while I'll see it in my notebook and think, I'll just try that again, and then it gets a laugh. And it's how come it didn't before? So it is weird.
Maybe you feeling like it's monotonous to tell the same joke. Does that happen?
That's partly why I like to change it around, because otherwise it would get a bit tedious. It gets too easy in a way. It almost like to challenge yourself and just change it around and just be standing up there thinking, do I know what's coming next? Well, the audience don't, so it doesn't matter what you actually say in the end. But try and keep it fresh in that sense. To try and make it sound like the jokes, that you've just thought of stuff for the first time. Yeah. So that's where the acting comes in. I'm not so good on the acting and the performance side, I would say. I'm better on the writing, but that's always a challenge.
Do you find yourself like laughing at some people's reactions and stuff like that?
Yeah. I love the reactions sometimes. Yeah. So what was one where some woman slapped her thigh recently, and I just had to say, "Wow, that's a thigh slapping reaction." And then what else? Yeah. Or as a kind of passive, drum on the table, or.
I've seen people doing that. It's always weird to do it. I think
it's just funny how I did like any reaction, like I say, groans as well. Sometimes it just makes me laugh when people groan because I knew what was coming.
Because you knew that was going to happen. So it's perfect.
It's actually weird that I've not been to a lot of comedy shows, but each comedy show, the thing I remember for most of them is when somebody laughed a bit weird. Mm-hmm. That always seems to be the longest part of a comedy show.
Like a really loud kind of.
Somebody laughs. Like at Jim Owen, that person that laughed 5 times, that went on for ages, and it was the best part of your show, which sounds terrible because Jim Owen's really good, but that was the funniest part of your show.
Just that guy, just
occasionally
he could not control himself.
And occasionally I've had a guy or a woman just in hysterics, and they just feel like they're not going to stop. And in fact, once a woman had to just get herself out of the seat and like hide somewhere because she just couldn't stop.
You're thinking the exact same thing I'm thinking.
You're thinking Daniel Sloss.
Daniel Sloss.
Yeah,
that was us.
We went to see Daniel Sloss at a. That was Adam Smith Theatre in Kirkcaldy, and we're just kind of sitting enjoying the show, just sitting there kind of having a laugh as you do, and he said something, and it was just because you started laughing at something different, but about the same time that I started laughing. I laughed because he said something. It was just an aside, but I found it funny, and I got a real tickle, and I just started laughing, and then he's right next to me, and then he's laughing because I'm laughing, and then it comes to a part where Daniel Sloss starts talking about his sister dying,
right.
And I'm still going, and I went, oh my god, I just had to cover my mouth, and I was like, oh man.
Then we found out that who was sitting behind us? His mum and dad. So we were sitting right in front of his mum and dad, and we were laughing about his. We're not laughing about his sister, but that was what it looked like.
I think they must have known.
I think so.
Why you're laughing? You'd think, yeah.
But it's one of the things that you don't get that same feeling when you're watching like a comedy DVD or something like that. When you're out live, you're there's a lot more of an atmosphere. You can dig in. Just there's a big vibe.
Yeah.
When you're at a comedy show, you don't get that the same as that off a DVD.
Oh no, not at all. No,
I could see myself watching a DVD and not laughing all the way through, although still finding it funny, but just kind of groaning my way through it. Sort of thing.
I still enjoy it, but it's just not the same as seeing it live.
That's it. So how would you go through your writing process?
It's different for every comedian. My writing process is a bit haphazard. I always feel like I'm always on the go, but stuff will just pop into my head. So then, it's like a race to get it into the notebook before it's forgotten. Right. And then every so often I'll go through the notebook and just think, oh yeah, I like that. Sometimes I've forgotten what I've written, and I think, oh, that's funny. So then I'll try those out at a new material night if I can, which is a bit torturous, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
So it's like up to 10 minutes, just 40 new jokes, and maybe 5 of them will be okay, and a lot of them won't be. But you just have to do it.
So how do you deal with jokes that didn't go that well? Do you still get the real depressing pain inside?
It comes from
if it's a new material night and the audience know it is, and I'm standing there literally reading my jokes out,
right.
We both know, the audience and me, what the situation is, but it still feels more painful than it probably is.
Yeah.
But at least I know why I'm doing it, and there's an end product. Hopefully, some of them have hit the mark, so then I know I've got something to work with. And even the ones that don't work, it's you maybe just rewrite it and try it again.
There's always the chance that you need to rewrite it.
But I'm not someone who'll just have the luxury of the time to sit in front of a computer and just start writing stuff. But I suppose the beauty of one-liners is it'll be just something I've heard that's triggered something in my mind, and just write it down, and then it's quite easy, I find, then to write a joke around that, because probably that's the punchline, and then it's like, what's the funny setup to make it as funny as possible? Yeah.
Because you have to think about rhythm and kind of all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's a thing that people don't really think about a lot of the time, but when you watch comedy, you kind of get used to that rhythm all the time.
So I quite appreciate Twitter now, because it's a good way of making a joke short, and also just finding exactly the right wording, because A, to keep it within the characters, and B, just to sort of write it and then come back a minute later and think, oh no, that doesn't quite work, the rhythm, like you're saying. So there is definitely a rhythm to the way, and that's written down rather than delivered, so even that's a challenge.
That's it. Have you ever had a joke that you've used for a good while, you thought was funny, and that you've tried it a bunch of times and you've been like, nobody's enjoying this? Have you ever had that?
So in a live...
like you've written a joke. Like I've heard about people that have written jokes before, and they just find those jokes funny, but it's just personally funny to them. And then when they've tried them on stage, they've been like, "Oh fuck!" Like,
That's the endless mystery. You just think, "Oh, this is fantastic," and you deliver it, and people just shrug their shoulders.
Yeah,
it's like, but that's funny, isn't it? Surely, So, and then there's other jokes where you just think, well, it's not great, but I'll keep it in there, and you say it, and then you get like lots of laughter, and you think, well, that wasn't that good. Sounds like you're criticising the audience. So I got that last new material night. It's always the same. The ones that you think, oh yeah, these are great, and the audience has a different opinion, and it's the audience's opinion that matters in the end.
That's it.
Sometimes, it is annoying. Sometimes you just think, oh, this is such good wordplay, but it just isn't funny to anyone. So it's just not going to stay in.
So do you think there's a point where the wordplay is so good that nobody can really catch on it? Is that?
I think actually it probably looks good written down, and when people have had a chance to sort of look at it and read it 3 times and then realise, see what he's done there. Yeah, that's quite clever. That, but that's no use in a live context. It has to be something.
It needs to be quick and
you need to get it within a few seconds to.
And I think it helps if there's a joke that has either a sound effect or it conjures up something in your mind that's a good visual thing as well as the words. That can help, I think. So sometimes these extra things, or like you say, the rhythm of it just sounds funny because just the way it sounds, not necessarily because it is that funny as a joke. So
that's it. Have you ever had any stuff that you've written that you've just never went any further with?
How would you?
Like if you've written down an idea and you've been like, right, that's a great idea, and then maybe later you'll go back to it and you'll be like, oh, I can't get something to cover that and make that funny.
Well, that punchline, but you can't think yourself.
Yeah, I think that probably applies more to comedians who do stories and so on. I suppose. Yeah, it's less.
Are you going off this Chris Rock regular racing? Are you just asking questions?
Oh well, I was thinking a few things off that. That was just pretty interesting to ask as well.
Right,
it's pretty cool.
I refer you to Chris Rock in that case.
Well, I'm into a whole different loads of stuff. I'm into one-liner comedians, a lot of kind of like story-based stuff, like really kind of just a huge and abstract silliness all the time. Just so much different stuff that kind of I just get because I know people that are just not fans of like simple observational comedy, because like Peter Kay gets a lot of flack for that. A lot of kind of comedians and people like don't like Peter Kay. I like Peter Kay. I think he's pretty fucking funny. But, I don't know what you're thinking, but
yeah, no. I mean, it's
subjective.
Exactly, and some people love dark humour. Some people love to be offended. Some people love clean comedy, one-liners. I think with one-liners, it's pretty black and white. It's either going to work or it's not. So you're just going to try it, really.
Is there a lot of guys that do kind of the style of comedy that you do?
No, there isn't. No. Well, there's a few, but I think each of us, and when I think about people like Tim Vine, Milton Jones, each comedian is slightly different in the way they do it. So to take someone like Milton Jones, just because most people will know who he is, he's a lot more kind of surreal, creating those images in your mind that I was referring to earlier. Stuart Francis, I would say, is a bit darker, a bit. He's. I went to see a show at Edinburgh Fringe, and he threw something in which was totally unexpected, totally dark, and I just thought it was brilliant. But I can see some people being really offended by it, and you couldn't imagine Milton Jones doing that. Whereas Tim Vine's just more kind of like the cheesy dad kind of thing, where you just laugh because it is so kind of cheesy, and there's just so much stuff that he just spouts out. So it's almost like the quantity of it's amusing. Then there's, in terms of acts on the circuit, there's oh god, I'm trying to think of who there is now.
I'm guessing there's not a huge amount sort of thing. It's more like
Yeah, it's a bit specialist, and I think one-liner comedians are looked down upon by some comedians. They don't see it as true comedy, or
you're always going to get that.
Oh, you're always going to get sloppiness.
Yeah, and I don't have a great problem with that as long as it doesn't stop people getting gigs and they're being overlooked. And and you could take someone like Gary Delaney. I think you could put him into probably any kind of context. So like a club night, late night, theatre gig, student gig, whatever, and he'd be fine because of the quality of his jokes, and he is just so funny. Then there'd be other one-liner comics who wouldn't suit some of the drunken crowds because they're just not there to have their brain engaged. They just want something that sounds funny and then they'll laugh. So I forget what your question was, but about different acts, I suppose, that are doing one-liners, was it? Yeah. So
that's cool. Did you done something for the Edinburgh Comedy Festival? You done like a Mirth of 4th? Was it a test or event you done?
So the Edinburgh Fringe.
Yeah.
I did a solo run.
Oh, was that solo run you done?
Last summer.
Right.
Going to be doing something similar again this
Excellent,
summer.
right. I didn't know that as well, that's fair.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's particularly appreciate Ben at the Beehive, which is the venue for that he's given me that slot. And I think the thinking is that one-liners, as I was saying, not necessarily suited to certain kinds of gigs, but when it comes to the Fringe, that in terms of if you like a mixed bill across the day and the evening for the Beehive, then having a one-liner comic just helps to broaden the
definitely
the variety. So I've got a kind of lunchtime, early afternoon spot. I'm quite happy with that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is that a paid gig that you do?
It's free to get in. It's a bucket on the way out. So try and rugby tackle people and get them to part with their money.
That's it. How did you feel your show went the last time then?
It was a learning experience. Doing 3 weeks is quite tough.
Is that every day?
That's every day as well.
Well, I was taking Mondays off, to be fair, but it was about how many performances was it? I've lost track. So it was 3.5 weeks of 6. How many is that? About 22 or something.
20 shows in a row.
So it's tough. It's like it's a marathon. Before we started recording, we were just talking a bit about drinking gigs and so on. So that's it, because it's a marathon.
Yeah,
temptation
I
is
totally
to
understand why
the first weekend you want to like drink and celebrate. This is the Fringe, yay! And after 7 or 8 days, you're going, oh god, my head hurts so much.
You forget sometimes how often comedians are comedianing.
Doing the shows, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about drinking before a show, and I thought it would be easier because you see people like Jim Jeffries who drink 2 or 3 pints on a thing, and I was like, I assumed most comedians would have a drink for going on stage, but then when you talk about 22 shows in 3.5 weeks,
and this is a lunchtime show, so
lunchtime, it's a bit ridiculous to have pints all the time. So I totally understand.
It's all about pacing yourself, So I survived. I came down with an ear infection, which is something I get on a regular basis when I'm stressed and tired, so that was an interesting challenge.
There was probably no need for you to stay in Edinburgh either. You could probably just come back home.
It's fantastic. That's the one time when all the comics come.
There's no need to find the venue every night as well. You know exactly where you're going.
There's no fucking about. There is that advantage being a comedian in Scotland. For once, everyone's coming to you, and you can have a laugh at them as they pay over the odds for the accommodation, and travel, and whatever else. It's unfortunate because it does tend to get hijacked by the comedians from other countries. And the good thing about the Beehive, it is the Scottish Comedy Festival, so it is effectively a showcase for comedians performing in Scotland. So it's got that. I think I assume it's getting a bigger profile.
You said a few years ago that Scotland was still considered one of the toughest places to be a comedian.
It's a thing that keeps popping up a lot of the time. That there's always, I can't remember who I've heard that. I've heard that a few times from different people. A lot more critical. But I don't know where I've heard that from. I think I've probably just heard that from other comedians. That just
probably from comedians who are outside of Scotland.
Maybe. That's very hard to check. I have heard other
because they always make a big deal about doing well in Scotland.
Aye.
I think historically there's for variety acts and comedians a long time ago that the prospect of playing the Glasgow Empire was meant to be, that was meant to be the biggest challenge, wasn't it? So I think, but times have changed, and you get all sorts of gigs you, in Scotland as you do in other countries. So it depends who's saying it, and you should be able to rise to the occasion. And there's going to be some gigs where it's not going to happen. But you have to be ready for these things.
Can I ask, what has been your shittest gig? The one that's kind of either not went well, they've had kind of like really annoying people in the crowd. And have you had a worst gig? I imagine you would have at some point.
Statistically,
yes, it has to be one.
Why am I struggling to think of one at the moment?
I mean, you're an amazing comedian.
No, because there's been so many, I can't think of one to pick up. I tend to think with one-liners, you'll get 10% of the audience who really, really love it, and laughing away, and it's what happens with the other 90%, and it tends to vary. So maybe half of the audience go for it and they enjoy it, but it's the other half who are either too drunk to know what's going on, or they just don't get it, or they just don't like it, and that varies. And occasionally you get an audience, especially if it's a smaller gig, you might find, 2/3 of the audience or 3/4 of the audience tonight, they're not into my style of comedy, and then it's just going to feel painful.
I've got so much respect for comedians for going through that kind of pain.
I don't know if I can come up with anything specific, but it will tend to happen after you've had a really good gig, and you're all puffed up and you think, this is brilliant, I love doing comedy, and then the next gig is where you have the shittest one. And you think
brutal.
It is brutal, and you just think, what? You start off by thinking this is funny, everyone laughs at this, and then by the end you're just wanting to slit your wrist and think, why am I doing it? I'm not funny, I'm not doing, the prospects of me ever doing this full time. And that's just the way it goes, And the thing is, you don't always really know how it's going to go. You just don't know. I always have this thing about 2 minutes before I go on where I just think, I'm not funny. Why am I doing this? They're not going to like me. And then a couple of jokes in, they're laughing. It's like, oh, thank God for that. Why was I thinking that?
I think that would be a comedian thing, though. Just constantly thinking you're not funny.
It is all about confidence.
Which is weird, considering the job is...
You have to convince the audience you know what you're doing and you're funny, and hope for the best inside, but don't tell them that.
Excellent, man. Well, I think what we'll do is, you got any gigs you want to plug?
Well, it'd be short notice. I'm doing Glasgow Comedy Festival tomorrow, so it's probably, I assume this will be published overnight.
This will be up on Tuesday coming. So
we'll go after that. Monday. So I'm in Dalgety Bay at Louis Brown's on Saturday. Oh no, it's a week on Saturday. God, what else have we got in the diary? So there's that. That's a fairly local gig. I'm in Moffat, in the Borders on when's that? First Friday in April, I think. Oh, I should have brought my diary with me. I can't remember. I'll have to look on my own website sometimes to see what I've got coming up. It's ridiculous.
I'll just put some links like below the podcast.
Because there's a page on my website where I've got upcoming gigs. I'm doing Bath Comedy Festival, which is no use to anyone up here, in the beginning of April as well. So I'll be referring to my own website to find out what I'm doing.
We might have some listeners in Bath. You never know.
Never know.
Probably not.
Well, Richard, thanks very much for coming up. That has been absolutely magic.
Thank you. I didn't really come up with many puns, but I do puns, guys.
Do you want to try and...
no, that's fine. I was just kind of conscious. We were talking about comedy rather than me doing comedy. So,
that was it.
No, thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all.
I hope it was interesting to people who listen. They haven't dozed off or switched off by now. So. If you got to the end, well done, guys.